And it's clear that HBO
Mm.
want to make the most of their new favourite IP with Dune Prophecy, the new show set 10,000 years before the birth of Paul Atreides.
Yes.
I'm not sold yet. And I've realised while talking about Dune why I'm not sold.
So you sent a message yesterday after you'd watched it of, I don't want to sound zoomer here, but it's lacking aura, which I took the mick out of you. But I get where you were
I
coming
couldn't
from.
find the words. I've realised what it is.
It,
As we've just been discussing,
this show needed a double episode drop.
quite possibly, very possibly. But what I've realised just while discussing Dune is Dune had like an insanely small amount of spoken words
Hmm.
and a very visually interesting setting.
Mm-hmm.
This show, because it's TV show, I get the budget isn't as crazy, so it's not going to look as good. It is not visually as interesting, and these motherfuckers yapped all episode long.
Yeah.
And here's the thing: that's not actually a problem. The amount of dialogue in a show doesn't reflect the quality of it.
Mm-hmm.
But when you go into something that is Dune, having watched the two films that are out, you're expecting something that feels like Dune. So for there to just be yap, it doesn't feel even remotely similar. And I think that's what created that it's lacking aura, because it is just a completely different vibe.
Yeah, I think like I enjoyed this first episode, but I get where you're coming from. It's Dune is realistically, Dune is from you're watching that as the perspective of a whole planet in Arrakis. There's grand CGI environment stuff that they sell you on. Like there's CGI does a lot of heavy lifting in that to visually sell this world, to help, like you say, make this world interesting and pull you in that way. TV show can't do that same scale of CGI because of budget. And then it's also, this show is a closed in perspective, essentially, of the Bene Gesserit.
Yes.
And the start of what they are going to become, which is a very stark contrast to what Dune is. You're getting a different perspective. Rather than planet, it's just a small group of people. And then because of that, there's more dialogue. And like you say, it's a different pace. I think the ending moments of episode 1 suddenly unlocks some intrigue as what the fuck was that?
That's why I have a bit of hope and why I agree that a 2-episode drop probably wouldn't have had me feeling so iffy.
I think it's that thing we've said often when there's 2-episode drops on these different series we've watched, where the first one is a bit slower and set up, and then the second one gets into the beginning and the meat of it. I think this is going to be the same, but because we've only got that first one, it's like it came right at the end and you're like, oh, I needed that bit earlier maybe.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's kind of like the first time we really noticed it was when we watched Andor season 1. We're like, oh, we don't know how we feel about them doing a 2-episode drop. And then we watched it and the first thing we said was, doing 2 episodes allowed them to set up everything they needed to the first episode, but you as a viewer still got to feel like stuff was happening via the second episode. Great decision. And I am quietly confident that episode 2 will get me back in. But yeah, just discussing it and realising how little they speak in Dune and just how much dialogue was in this episode, I think that's what made it feel not like Dune to me. And I get this obviously a different part of the universe. We've gone from a sand planet where everything's a lot more hostile. Like everything is worth everything. Like the spice is worth everything. The water is worth everything. You don't waste energy because of how precious it is.
Yes.
And then you come back to like these other planets like Wallace 9 and stuff where it's like a monastery or a school or something. Of course there's going to be more discussion. There's going to be, you don't have to be worried about being so silent because the sandworm's going to come and eat you. So it makes a lot more sense. It just threw me off a little bit. But I'm very curious to see where it goes. And then people just randomly catching fire at the end of the episode has definitely piqued my interest.
I'm like, what the fuck is this?
Ballsy to kill off a child, by the way. Ballsy.
Yeah. But like, so right at the end, the final moments is what really grips you, and it's like, I forget what the character's name is. The soldier, Ragnar Lothbrok himself, um, has arrived on this planet. He's survived. Apparently, we get some reveal where he's talking to this kid who has this weird AI. I love that this opened with them being like the AI war, and them setting up what happened before, where we get to and do like they set up the timeline. It's always a fucking AI war in sci-fi shit. Maybe we should stop fucking around with AI. But like, this kid's got a little toy, and then he tells him, like, you shouldn't be fucking with that stuff. And then
people died to deal with that stuff. Don't treat it so lightheartedly. Yeah.
And then the kid's like, but my dad says it's not. Everyone's a bit too stuck up about that. Fucking AI crypto bro, dad, right there. But then the Lord checks the data card and sees that it's a. So I couldn't tell. Is it is he a Fremen?
I'm really struggling to tell because he's got like his eyes have got a bit of a glow to it, but that's just like exposure to spy stuff.
Yeah.
And if he was on Arrakis as a soldier, it's possible that would have happened. But yeah, I don't know if his squadron died and he got like taken in by the Fremen and kind of learnt their ways a little bit, and now he's like an inside man. Maybe.
So I have two theories. One is he's not actually this soldier that he says he is. Because
okay.
What if this, just because this Lord's heard the name, it's that thing of like, oh, famous soldier on another planet I've never been to. He has the name, he has sort of the soldier look. Is he who he says he is?
That's fair. I mean, we have no evidence to suggest they've ever actually met or seen pictures of him or anything like that. So
Yeah,
it's very possible that he just trusted he was who he says he was.
Also, it seems like if it is him in that little clip, he got eaten by a sandworm. It seemed. Well, the sandworm came and destroyed everything, but there was thumpers down. So Fremen have set that up to like get rid of it. So then it's like, is he a double agent for the Fremen? Was he eaten by a sandworm, got spit out, got some fucking weird ass powers? Because we know the water of life is from inside a. Maybe that's done some weird shit to him. We don't know where this fucking burning thing's come from.
So
is he an AI hiding as a person?
With this child, I assumed his little thing, because he like missed it and he didn't know where it had gone. I assumed the little thing had like attacked him and killed him. But then it cuts to the woman on a different fucking planet who dies the exact same way, and I'm like, okay, well, that wasn't an AI. So, I really don't know.
The woman that had gone back to the monastery of Bene Gesseric's, she'd had that vision, that weird nightmare, which ended with blue eyes.
Yes.
Which is the same as what the old dying lady had at the beginning. She had like a nightmare vision. It showed blue eyes. And then she says about burning. So there's some connection there. And then there's this guy now. The little AI thing had blue eyes. He sort of has a tinge of blue eyes. I'm like, is he an AI that's worked out how to disguise themselves as human?
I mean, that's the concern.
There's some weird shit going on, but I love that like that's essentially what they throw that in at the end. They're like, this is what's going to be the main hook, because for the most of that episode, we're like, those that have watched the films are like, oh, this is how the Bene Gesserit got started. Oh, they're learning the voice.
The first use of the voice was like,
yes.
She invented the voice? She discovered the voice?
But then you can see them talking about like, oh, we're going to get a Bene Gesserit on the throne. We're getting to see them shift from being just truthsayers to this idea of where we saw Paul Atreides' mum. Essentially, they start teaching princesses and then are marrying them into families so that they have that deeper level of control.
Yeah. And we can also see back at this point 10,000 years ago, House Harkonnen wasn't particularly influential or powerful.
No. Well,
they were one of the lesser families.
And
it
we
seems.
hear there was House Atreides that destroyed all the AI in the AI war.
Yeah. So
It's
it seems like Harkonnen over these 10,000 years, alongside the Bene Gesserits, because one of them had the name Harkonnen,
yeah,
clearly get their family to a bit more power and a bit more influence over time, and that leads to them becoming this
well, yeah, it's they obviously
dark society.
twist with the Bene Gesserit decide who they want to be the ones in power. Um, and obviously House Atreides has slowly slipped down the pecking order, it seems.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, the setup of this monastery on the early stages of the Bene Gesserit, you've got this princess who was marrying the kid. That's all gonna fucking change now because this kid's got. We've got some unknown soldier who's just seemingly burnt a kid alive.
Yeah, I'm really curious as to how that happened.
It has to be him, but how that is a
How
thing.
does that
Who
relay? Is it
there's
a poison thing? Is it a magical power thing? As we've said, Dune isn't a particularly sci-fi world, despite being sci-fi by definition. It's got a lot more elements of fantasy to it than traditional sci-fi would have, so that there is room for some weird jiggery pokery. But
it's.
yeah, I'm curious to see what the payoff for that is. But yeah, the balls in your first episode to just kill a 9-year-old child.
I mean, the kid was a little shit.
It was a 9-year-old. What were you like at 9 years old?
I wasn't that stuck up.
Yeah, imagine if you were from a big influential family. You prick.
Exactly, Tory deserved it. But yeah, no, we get, and I like my comment last week when we did a preview, and I me saying this was like potentially could be the new Game of Thrones. I can see them using that. Not obviously they've got the material from the books and stuff, and like they can work with that. But that idea of houses manipulating other houses, it's all political. There's going to be backstabbing. There's some weird shit going on. There's going to be a similar vibes of that, I think. It would be
Well,
interesting, like you say, if we get House Harkonnen, find out, maybe we start to see how they begin to gain some power.
yeah. Well,
Different
that was
things
the
like
thing
that.
that really made me laugh. Shouldn't have made me laugh. This is just like the kind of bullshit you talk about when you're watching a show with someone. I said to Jenna, I was like, Horry thinks, and I see why he thinks, that this is going to be HBO's new answer to Game of Thrones. And 2 seconds later, it was like that weird sex scene in the club.
Oh, wait. This mirrors
Which.
the first episode of Game of Thrones in a strange way. Because the first episode of Game of Thrones has a brother and sister having sex. And they're in a tower, and it's the Stark boy finds
and
him,
it pushes they
pushes him, and he
push her in,
becomes,
is it?
yeah, Bran, and he becomes a
Bran.
cripple. This time, brother and sister having sex in a club, boy gets melted instead.
Yeah.
Hmm.
But then as that started, I was like, oh my god, yeah, it's not on Arrakis now, so they can have sex without it being a big deal because they're not trying to preserve all of their liquids.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm curious to see where the show goes, and obviously I'll give it a fair shake. But it's definitely quite a different vibe to the Dune films, and the jury is out on whether I'm gonna enjoy it as much or if I'm gonna enjoy it at all. But there were some good bits, have some interesting bits. I think the acting was all pretty good,
Yeah.
but it was just a lot of exposition that at like no, what was it? It was like 9 o'clock on a Monday night. My brain was like, lock
I,
in.
if the second episode really starts to now get into what this story is going to be for season one, I think we're in for a potential treat. If this second episode feels similar, this could feel a bit slow.
Absolutely.
But we'll have to wait and see.
I agree.